Welcome to another episode of the Drew Aversa Show. Today I have my guest, Kaz Marte, founder and CEO of Con Body Fitness. Kaz, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Drew. I really appreciate the opportunity here.
Hey, Kaz, it's great having you here. And you have quite a story, my man, from Vice TV, following you as one of the youngest entrepreneur kingpins in New York City to doing a fitness program now based off of your journey from being incarcerated at a very young age. So you want to just give us a little background on the life as an entrepreneur from the streets to life as an entrepreneur, on the
Yeah,
on a budding fitness venture that you're looking at partnerships and all these other cool things now. It's a pretty cool story.
yeah, it's been a crazy journey. I mean, I grew up in the Lower East Side of New York City, where I still live at, where I'm still at right now, where it was a very heavily drug infested neighborhood back in the 80s and 90s. It was just like a whole different, uh, looked like a war zone a little bit, like even pavement on the street was not down. There was like dirt roads, you know what I mean? It was a crazy scene back then. And I just remember like, you know, as a kid seeing like heroin needles up and down my staircase, like just it was just a very very heavily drug infested. Everybody had a different type of corner, and there were gangs that ran the block, and it was just a whole different scene. But as a kid, growing up with nothing, like my mom immigrated from the Dominican Republic when she was pregnant with me, and we ended up in this neighborhood. I wanted things. I saw other kids that had the Jordan sneakers, or the guys that had chains on the corner, and that's what I aspired to want and get as a kid. And my mom couldn't get it for me because she couldn't afford it, and so I had to get it on my own. And so as a very young kid, I got involved with drugs. At 11 I started smoking. 13 I started dealing, and then from there it just started escalating, and by the age of 19 I was making over $2 million a year. But I took that same transferable skill and started doing something positive, and brought it into a fitness perspective. Once I got incarcerated at 23 years old, at 23, I was sentenced to 7 years in prison. And that's when I had found out that I had all these types of health issues. My cholesterol level was through the roof. They placed me on medication. They told me,
At
I need,
23 years old, 23.
yeah, 23 years old. I
Wow.
was I was diagnosed with, high cholesterol, um, and so that motivated me to, work out. Um, Obviously, in prison, everybody works out, so I was like the bigger guy who was moving slow, and people calling me names. I remember trying to get on the pull-up bar, and like in prison, you line up to, get on the pull-up bar. So there's like a line of probably like 30 inmates, and there's like probably two or three pull-up bars in the yard. And and we all lined up, and then it was my turn to get up there, and I just couldn't get up. I told the guy behind me to give me a boost, push me up, and then people started laughing, but I just kept at it. I just kept at it and kept running and kept moving, and I lost 70 pounds in 6 months. And then I helped over 20 inmates who's over 1,000 pounds combined. I got my life back. My cholesterol went back to normal rates. And I felt like I could move again. I remember being so big, it was hard for me to tie my shoes, and when that was when I really noticed that, oh, I could tie my shoes, that I was like a little bit back to normal. Um, it's just crazy. And then it didn't occur to me that I want to start a business behind the situation until I got into an issue with an officer, and that had landed me in solitary confinement. And while I was in solitary confinement, I started really thinking about what I really wanted to do when I come home. And so I came up with ConBody there, and came up with all the workout routines that I was conducting in the yard with other inmates, and came up with my whole program, and wrote a book behind it, that's available on Amazon right now. But um, I came home with that mentality that I was going to start this business. Nothing was going to stop me, and I was just going to keep going. And I had that determination that I was just going to make it happen. So there is a lot of transferable skills from like the streets to to legitimate businesses. I mean, I think we have to hustle, we have to market, we have to brand, we have to find our target market. We have to manage employees and teams. So there's a lot of crossovers, and so I feel like I definitely transformed my hustle to go legit this time.
I personally don't believe kids are born bad. I think in your situation, right, it's a product of the environment, and then the trauma and all the other things that happen in an environment like that, and our American society of keeping up with the Joneses in New York. I mean, you got Wall Street there, you've got $20 million penthouses, all these other things around you that bling 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 nonstop, and the city never sleeps. So I mean, culture's a big thing. And I think, one of the things we're going to talk about too is, the culture of prison, right? Like, how do you survive in an environment like that, mentally, right? What's the mindset of somebody, day one? Let's walk people through, because I don't think people really understand, of if that happened to them and the shoe was on the other foot, wrong place, wrong time, challenging upbringing, all these different factors, right? And then you're in there for 7 years, versus we see other prison systems that, around the world, some are harsher, and others are more on the rehabilitation side, where they want people to, kind of get out sooner and different things. So what does that culture look like, and how do you have the right mindset,
Yeah, I
throughout a
mean,
situation like that?
yeah, there's a lot of jail politics, especially here in the States. I mean, and a lot of segregation. Like it's like you walk into that prison or that jail mindset, and you walk in through those gates and those doors, you just feel like you went back to like the 60s. And I didn't live through the 60s, but you just feel that segregation. Blacks have their own phone, Hispanics have their own phone. In New York, there's not a lot of white people that are incarcerated, so the majority of people in Rikers Island are people of color. I think a stat came out, it was like 96% of the population is minorities in New York City jails. And so it's just crazy when you walk in there and you see that segregation. You see it's just a whole different set of rules. You couldn't shower on this side, you can't use the phone, you can't use that phone, or you can't watch TV at a certain time because people have the TV. It's just crazy, and you just got to adapt. When I walked in through those doors, like I was arrested at 13. I did a year when I was 15. So I've been in and out of the system at a very early age. And I've been trapped for a long time in that cycle, starting with probation and then going to big boy prison and parole and all that stuff. And so you get stuck in that mindset where like you got respect is a big thing in prison. Like, you want to try to mind your business, not get into any jail politics. I remember, the like it was a sergeant or captain that came through for like orientation, and they tell you, don't get involved with the 3 Gs. The 3 Gs is
What's that?
gang, gambling, and gay. Like don't get involved with men, don't get involved with gambling, especially if you don't have the money to pay it. Somebody's gonna come after you, or you win, and that person can't pay you back, and so now you have to get that person back. At fighting, and then the gangs. I mean, they just bring problems. I've seen people that walk in through the door. 17, 18-year-old kids that walk in through the door, and they're sent on a dummy mission, and by that I mean like, hey, they want to be part of the blood or gang or Crips or whatever, and they get sent on a mission to prove themselves. So they have to like beat this guy up for no reason, and then that ends them up in solitary confinement for a whole year. and there's just been so many situations like that I've seen, but that's what they tell you to do, when you walk through that door. So myself, anytime I went inside, I try to keep to myself. I do interact with people, but it's more of like a high by and just keep it cool. Um, and you can't show fear. You can't uh, be a person that could show emotion. If you show any fear, if you show that you're scared, if you show that you're like any other person but tough, like people will take advantage of you. And I've seen people get taken advantage. Especially like people getting like commissary. They get a package from home, and they walking through that gate, everybody's gonna be eyeing you. So now you have somebody that might sneak thief you, like go into your cell and take your stuff, or maybe you have a gang member that beats you up and takes your stuff, and you got to fight back, and if you don't fight back, even if you lose, um, if you lose, you got respect, and that's what it is. But and then don't tell, like snitching is a big thing. Like you don't want to get caught ratting. Like it's once you become a snitch, you better just sign up for like protective custody in there. And it is what it is. I mean, the rest is history. But um,
That's a powerful story, Cos. I mean, I appreciate you being vulnerable and authentic sharing this, because I don't think a lot of people hear what you just shared. There's a story of I got in, and there's a story of I got out, but it's what is that life like, right? In between the time of, I broke the law, and then I created a business, right? What was that life? And one thing you and I talked about before was, my time on the Disability Commission. You know, the way that I view things is through the lens of trauma, right? That growing up, in the environment that you were in, or other people are in, is very traumatic. And we put young people in the criminal justice system, and then that gives them, a black ball, right? I mean, it puts a mark on somebody at 13 years old. You said you were in there, then 15, then back, at 23, versus looking through the lens of how the brain, and I know you've studied all these things, physiology and the body now, as a coach, right? And understanding the body, the brain, when the brain doesn't have the right inputs, or it's in a traumatic state, and the environment, the biopsychosocial model, when you look at that, the biology, the psychology, and the sociology of it, the brain's reacting. And then you have a society around you in which there's drugs, there's heroin, there's all these different things that you're mentioning. And then now you get thrown in jail, and you get thrown in with more trauma and more drama, versus looking through the lens of disability and saying, okay, somebody got thrown in here because, their brain's not processing right from wrong, or, the society in which they're operating in also isn't healthy. So how can we look through the lens of maybe disability? How can we look through the lens of a social worker, as opposed to criminalizing somebody at a very young age? And then we know the statistics, you probably know them better than me, on the going back to jail, right? For the young kids that go in the first time, it's usually not, just their first time, like your statistic, right? I mean, you go in and then you go back again as an adult, and then from there, trying to get in the workforce becomes, challenging if somebody doesn't have that entrepreneurial grit like you.
mhm. And it becomes a revolving door. You come out, and it's just really hard to readapt back into society. So you get frustrated, and you go back to what's easier, and it's hard. I mean, I really had this time I came home, and I really had the grit. I really had the mentality that, whether I was like in the street or living in a cardboard box, that I was gonna just keep moving, and I remember like being, sleeping on my mom's couch for 2 years when I came home. I lost everything, that everything that I had, I lost. So I had to rebuild from the ground up, and I just knew that everything was going to be all right, as long as I showed up and continued delivering the workouts, and continued delivering a great product that I was going to, is gonna pop off no matter what. And so that was my hopes and mentality, and it came true. You know, today we trained over 50,000 people. I've hired 50 people coming out of the prison system, and we really are reducing the recidivism rate. You know, people going back in America, the rates are 76%. You know, they just came out with a new study last year. After 8 years, 82% will go back into the system. And so it's a sad statistic, but we have to continue breaking it, you know, and continue moving on. And I didn't stop.
What are your thoughts, Kyle? I mean, that's amazing. Training 50,000 people is huge. And then, you know, where we're going to get to, you know, as far as where you want to take the business on different partnerships and things like that. But what are your thoughts? I mean, how there's a lot of talk right now about, you know, social justice, systemic racism, all these different things going on right now. So what are your thoughts? I mean, having been in the system, having been an entrepreneur, how would you redesign the system right now?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a long time. I feel like there's a lot of old school mentality inside, especially in the correctional officers, like mindset in that system, that everything has to be punished, 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 punished. And if we have people that care and that work there that really want to see a change, they have to be super consistent on wanting to get that change and bring that change to the participants, you know, who are going in. I feel like most people that go in are just like cloaked up, you know, and I'm talking about like correctional officers that go in there to work. They're cloaked up with this old school guy who's worked there, you know, has his 5 stars, 25 years, 30 years. And that person's training them like, this is what we have to do. This is how we do it, you know? And so they fall into this clique where it becomes like correctional officers against the inmates, you know, and it becomes a battle. And I feel like if they go in there and really try to bring some type of rehabilitation, it's going to work. You know, people will learn something, people will change, but it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take a while. You know, we especially with inmates that have been there for so long, you know, who are bringing those old school mentalities. So the same thing I said for like correctional officers are applying to like inmates going in, you know, and following that lead from older inmates, you know. So but we have to change the mentality about that. You know, we call it correctional facility to correct a problem, not to punish the problem, you know, and that's what's been happening for years.
I'm with you. I think if you look at the prison cells, just when you look at Northern Europe, right, and you look at the cells that inmates are housed in, it's more like a, you know, studio apartment, like a single resident occupancy almost. But you look at the cells that we put people in, they're still looking like they were back in the Wild West days, you know, crowded, yeah. And, you know, the bars, and just very barbaric.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And like, just the whole experience is just very inhumane. You know, you don't get a pillow, you don't, you know, they just strip you away from everything. And I'm not saying like, hey, we should give everybody a pillow and that'll change everything, but, you know, try to bring some type of humanity. And I feel like those Scandinavian prisons that are really bringing that reform in are not seeing the violence that we're seeing, you know, in the States, you know, inside those correctional facilities, because they're going in with a different mentality. You know, they're being greeted with a different mentality. You know, they're told like, hey, we got these programs, we're going to keep you busy. You know, this is something you could do when you come home, you know. So they really have real transitional services, and inside the systems here, like the transitional services are just super out of whack and super outdated. Nowadays, like I know programs that are going inside that are doing stuff, but they're doing it in a smaller scale in 1 or 2 prisons in New York State, and there's almost 70 prisons in New York State. So like,
that's a lot.
Yeah, that's just New York State. I mean, it's crazy across the country.
Let me ask you this too, on the topic, right? We talked about your sentencing, you know, for the bigger crime, you know, in a sense, once you hit that threshold, you know, on the dollar amount, you know, turned into 7 years for that 23 to age 30, 7 year sentence. does the time of being sentenced for 7 years, do you believe that changes the outcome, or does a shorter sentence with the right training and the right, social support services and all that? I mean, could people be getting out, let's say, after a year or two and having better lives, or does 7 years, does the time really teach you what you needed to learn, or, how do
I
you
think
go
that,
about judging time, right? And the value of being behind bars to correct something.
yeah, I think both. I think both do really change that mentality. I say that because like I've met guys who are serving 25 to life, and I was my my bunkie, he was sentenced to 67 years. Um, when he and I just he was already in there for about 15 years when I went in. And so when he told me when he got in, in the early 90s, he was just like fighting and everything was just crazy and he had to do what he had to do. But as time went by, he just got older and things just started changing. And so I think with older mental state of mind, especially like the youth don't stop growing until you're like 23. Our brains don't stop growing until we're, young adults. And so we're like more risk, uh, like how you say it, but we could take more risks as youth and don't even think about it.
Right.
When I was 16 and somebody told me, throw a water balloon at this lady's head, I'm just gonna do it, as a joke. But right now, somebody tells me that, I'm like, nah, you crazy? I might go, that's gonna be an assault charge. You crazy? I'm gonna think twice about it. But you act off an impulse when you're younger, and I think that's something that we really need to, take the heed to. Like most people, don't understand. We need to treat the youth different. But in the other sense about time, giving more resources inside the system, giving more opportunities does change, and I know that for a fact. Like if I would have had the opportunities to transition and had a job when I came home and had a, some sort of direction, like I would have definitely, not needed all that time.
So now's the time to blow up ConBody, right? I mean, that's where you're at now with the blessings that you've been given, with your entrepreneurial spirit. And where's the business now, man? Where do you see it going? I mean, there's so much support, I think, in society with reentry programs and awareness around, the challenges that you've gone through. And I think a lot of people want to support something. I mean, we've seen from like Orange Theory Fitness to these other membership things, Peloton, the mirror where you can work out, and now you've got ConBody. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy journey. We've been doing a lot of virtual. We have an on-demand platform, that people can subscribe for $14 a month. I've done a lot of the workout videos, subscription models, just to test out the market. And our product, I believe, is definitely the best. It's all body weight, no equipment. I feel like God gave us everything we need, and you could do it in a small constrained space like I did in a prison cell. So, you could sign up with us, train with your favorite formerly incarcerated person, and get that prison body you've always desired. So that's what I preach, and I feel like it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing for us to like really expand and really help people coming out of the system and really, change the mentalities of like our customers who are coming through, and they see a different perspective of what they've seen for so long in media. Media always highlights the criminal is always going to be a criminal, and we're just like locked up predators, and I feel like if we give that opportunity, like I have done in ConBody, we changes that mentality of who we really are, and that's my main goal, is to like we transform perspectives.
I love it. And I always say, we're all Americans at the end of the day, and, just one circumstance away, right? One family member could be caught up in something or somebody, and you look to the left, you look to the right, you don't know the person's story, right next to you. And taking the time, I think, to have those conversation is the key. And the body weight workout, I can attest to that because, with my injury, with the crushed hip, with the fire department and then my back, I was in great shape. And then all of a sudden, boom, trying to figure out that. So I actually had a veteran who messed up his back. He was a personal trainer and he got me on a body weight workout. And between the body weight workout and yoga, I feel great, because your body really, you're not on some bench press trying to wiggle weights around that are tweaking your spine all out of whack. Your body, like you said, I mean, God gives you a perfect body to get it back in shape, and the body weight workout, I support that 110%.
Yeah. I mean, it works. It works if you work it,
So how can people support you? How can people get a ConBody membership? And then you and I were talking about coming to the West Coast. What's going on? What's going on with ConBody?
Yeah. No, so people can sign up at conbody.com. You could DM me on Instagram just like you did, Drew, and reached out, and we'll give you the facts and information how to sign up on that platform. But it's pretty seamless and easy and affordable, $14 a month. If you want to do something in person, we're here in the Lower East Side in the studio, and check out our Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. We're doing amazing little quick hits and facts on TikTok if you want to follow us there, if you want to get a little bit of workout tips. But that's about it. I mean, you could check us out there. Please support, with any dollar that you're supporting me, you're not only supporting a business, but you're supporting people that are coming out and trying to readapt for sure.
Awesome. Cos, thank you so much for being on the show. And everybody check out ConBody the next time you need your new fitness routine to be in shape for 2021 and beyond.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.